Kethvar stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship and watched the stars. He had been doing this job for 3 years now, serving as a junior officer in the Fifth Fleet. Most days were boring. They patrolled empty space, checked on trading ships, and made sure pirates stayed away from the outer colonies. Nothing exciting ever happened out here. He liked it that way. The Galactic Coalition had existed for 12,000 years. Hundreds of different alien species lived together in peace. Wars were rare. Most conflicts got solved with words, not weapons. The Coalition Navy existed mostly to remind everyone that peace was worth keeping. Kethvar belonged to the Tevesh species. His people were tall and thin with blue skin and large eyes. They were known for being diplomatic and calm. Perfect traits for keeping peace in the galaxy. His friend Jake was different. Jake was human, and humans were still new to the galaxy. Earth had only joined the Coalition 30 years ago. Before that, humans had no idea that aliens even existed. They lived on their little planet, fighting among themselves and dreaming about the stars. When Coalition scouts finally found Earth, they were surprised. Humans were primitive compared to most species. Their technology was centuries behind. But they were friendly and eager to learn. The Coalition welcomed them as junior members, expecting it would take humans a long time to catch up with everyone else. Jake worked as a liaison officer on the flagship. His job was to help humans understand how the Coalition worked. He was a short man with brown hair and a constant smile. He asked questions about everything. Sometimes his questions were annoying, but Kethvar had grown to like him. "Tell me about the Kreshtar again," Jake said one day in the mess hall. They were eating lunch together, something they did most days. Kethvar put down his food. "Why do you want to know about them? They are just old stories." "Stories are important," Jake said. "On Earth, we learn a lot from our history, even the scary parts." Kethvar thought about it. The Kreshtar were scary, even if they were just legends now. They were an ancient race of warriors. 10,000 years ago, they tried to conquer the entire galaxy. They had incredible technology and bodies that could survive in space without ships. They killed billions. How did the Coalition stop them? Jake leaned forward, interested. "Barely," Kethvar said. "Our ancestors fought them for 100 years. Nothing worked. The Kreshtar were too strong, too advanced. Finally, the Coalition used a desperate plan. They collapsed an entire star cluster, creating a dimensional trap. The Kreshtar got pulled into a pocket dimension, the barrier sealed behind them." "So they are still alive in there?" Jake's eyes widened. "Maybe. No one knows. The dimensional barrier has held for 10,000 years. Most people think the Kreshtar are dead by now. Either way, they cannot get out." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said something strange. "I hope you are right. But on Earth, we have a saying. If something can go wrong, it probably will." Kethvar laughed. "Humans worry too much. The barrier is solid. The Kreshtar are gone." That conversation happened 3 weeks ago. Kethvar wished he could take back his laughter now. The alarm started screaming at 600 hours. Kethvar ran to his station on the bridge. Officers were rushing everywhere. The main view screen showed data that made no sense. "Report," the captain ordered. Captain Vrel was an older Tevesh with silver skin. He had commanded the flagship for 20 years and never lost his calm. Until now. His voice shook slightly. "Long-range sensors detected an anomaly in the theta sector," the science officer said. "The readings match nothing in our database. The energy signature is similar to dimensional rifts, but much stronger." "Show me visual," Captain Vrel ordered. The view screen changed. It showed an area of space that looked wrong. Reality itself seemed to be tearing open. Dark energy poured out of the rift like blood from a wound. And through that rift came shapes, ships, massive organic vessels that pulsed with dark light. "Analysis," the captain demanded. The science officer checked his console. His hands were shaking. "Sir, the ships match historical records from the Great War. Those are Kreshtar vessels." The bridge went silent. Kethvar felt his blood turn cold. It was impossible. The Kreshtar were trapped. They could not come back. But they were here. Captain Vrel recovered first. Send emergency transmission to Coalition Command. Priority Alpha. Tell them the dimensional barrier has failed. The Kreshtar have returned. The next hours were chaos. Messages flew across the galaxy. Every Coalition fleet received emergency orders. All military ships were to report to the Theta Sector immediately. Every member species had to send forces to stop the Kreshtar before they could spread across the galaxy again. Kethvar watched the view screen as more Kreshtar ships emerged from the rift. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. They were not exploring or cautious. They moved with purpose, spreading out toward inhabited systems. The Coalition's Supreme Commander appeared on every ship's view screen. She was an ancient Tevesh female named Suresh, who had led the Coalition for 40 years. Her face showed fear, something Kethavar had never seen before. "The threat we thought was buried in history has returned," Suresh said. "The Kreshtar are breaking through the dimensional barrier. All member species must send their forces to defend our worlds. This is not a request. This is survival." The transmission ended. Officers looked at each other with worry. The Kreshtar had nearly destroyed the galaxy before. Could the modern Coalition stop them? Jake found Kethvar later that day. The human looked serious, which was unusual for him. "My government contacted me," Jake said. "Earth is sending ships." "How many?" Kethvar asked. "All of them." Kethvar was confused. "Earth has a small fleet. Maybe 10 ships? Every bit helps, but against the Kreshtar." Jake shook his head. "You don't understand. Earth has been building ships in secret. We have been preparing for something like this." "Preparing for what?" "The Kreshtar were legends." "Exactly," Jake said. "Humans study every war, every disaster, every threat in galactic history. When we learned about the Kreshtar, our military leaders asked a question. What if they come back? What if the impossible happens?" "That seems paranoid," Kethvar said. Jake smiled, but it was not his usual happy smile. "Maybe. But humans have learned something from our history. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. You will see." 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at the rally point. Kethvar stood on the bridge and watched them come out of faster-than-light travel. His mouth fell open. 50 human warships appeared. They were nothing like the small patrol craft Earth had shown the Coalition before. These were massive vessels covered in weapons. They looked brutal and efficient, built for only one purpose: war. The largest ship was twice the size of the Coalition flagship. It was called the UNS Defiance. The name seemed appropriate. "They built all of this in secret?" Captain Vrel whispered. The combined fleet gathered in orbit around a dead moon. Kethvar had never seen so many ships in one place. Coalition vessels from 50 different species floated in organized formations. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and support ships stretched as far as sensors could detect. It was the largest military force assembled in over 1,000 years. And then there was the human fleet. The 50 human warships stayed in their own formation, slightly separate from the Coalition forces. Kethvar studied them from the bridge. Every human ship looked different from Coalition designs. Where Coalition vessels were smooth and elegant, human ships were angular and aggressive. They bristled with weapons, missiles, railguns, laser batteries, and systems Kethvar could not identify covered every surface. "They look violent," Captain Vrel said quietly. "They look ready," the tactical officer replied. Supreme Commander Suresh called a meeting of all fleet commanders. Captain Vrel attended from the flagship's conference room. Kethvar watched from the bridge as the meeting was broadcast to all stations. Dozens of alien faces filled the screen. Kethvar recognized most species. The four-armed Kelrath, the crystalline Shisari, the massive Brawn warriors. All of them were experienced military officers. All of them looked worried. Admiral Martinez sat among them. She was the only human. She looked small compared to some of the larger species, but something about her presence made others pay attention. "The situation is critical," Suresh began. "Our scouts report that Kreshtar forces are massing near the Theta Sector breach. They will attack within days. We must stop them there, or they will spread across the galaxy." A Kelrath admiral raised one of his four hands. Honored Commander, our historical records show that the Kreshtar are nearly invincible in direct combat. How can we hope to defeat them? Murmurs of agreement spread through the room. Fear was obvious on many faces. Suresh's expression was grim. I will not lie to you. The Kreshatar are powerful. Our ancestors barely defeated them. We can only hope that 10,000 years in a dimensional prison has weakened them. Hope is not a strategy, a Braun commander growled. No, Admiral Martinez spoke for the first time. Her voice was calm and clear. Hope is not a strategy. That is why Earth brought plans. Every alien face turned to look at her. Suresh gestured for the Admiral to continue. Martinez stood up. A holographic display appeared above the conference table. It showed the human fleet's specifications. The numbers made several alien commanders gasp. For the past 20 years, Earth has been preparing for a worst-case scenario, Martinez explained. We studied every major war in galactic history. We analyzed every threat, every disaster, every enemy the Coalition ever faced. The Kreshtar were at the top of that list. But they were myths, a Shisari officer said. Why prepare for myths? Because humans know that myths are often based on truth, Martinez replied. And because we learned long ago that preparation is never wasted. Every human ship in this fleet was designed specifically to fight the Kreshtar threat profile. She changed the holographic display. It now showed weapon specifications. Kethvar leaned forward to read the data. The weapons were primitive compared to Coalition technology. Kinetic weapons that simply threw metal at high speeds. Crude nuclear devices. Chemical explosives. These technologies are outdated, a Coalition admiral said, confused. These technologies work, Martinez corrected. Coalition weapons rely on shield disruption and energy coherence. They are elegant and efficient, but the Kreshtar have adaptive defenses that can counter energy weapons. Solid projectiles are harder to stop. An object moving at 0.5 light speed does not care about dimensional shields. The conference room was quiet. Kethvar realized what the Admiral meant. Humans had studied the ancient war records and designed weapons specifically to counter Kreshtar advantages. You have been planning this for 20 years? Suresh asked. Why did you not inform the Coalition? Martinez met the Supreme Commander's eyes without flinching. Because the Coalition would have called us paranoid. You would have told us the Kreshtar were gone forever. You would have asked us to stop wasting resources on impossible scenarios. Several alien commanders looked uncomfortable. She was right. But now they are here, Martinez continued. And Earth is ready to fight. We ask only that you trust our tactics and follow our lead when the battle begins. You want Coalition ships to follow human commands? A Kelrath admiral sounded offended. No disrespect, Admiral, but humans are new to warfare in space. We have thousands of years of experience. And how much of that experience involves fighting an enemy like the Kreshtar? Martinez's voice was sharp now. Earth has spent 20 years studying how to kill legends. Every human captain knows the Kreshtar battle tactics. Every human crew has trained for this exact scenario. We are not asking you to surrender command. We are offering to take the positions that will be most dangerous. You are offering to die first, a Braun commander said bluntly. If that is what it takes, Martinez replied without hesitation. Humanity did not come here to watch. We came here to fight. The meeting ended with an agreement. The Coalition would maintain overall command, but human ships would form the forward assault line. They would engage the Kreshtar first and draw their attention. Coalition forces would provide support and target priority threats. It was a plan that asked humans to sacrifice themselves for species they barely knew. Kethvar wondered if they truly understood what they were agreeing to. Jake found him later in the observation deck. The human looked out at the assembled fleet through the transparent wall. Your admiral is brave, Kethvar said. Or crazy. I have not decided which. Jake smiled slightly. Maybe both. But she is also smart. Humans understand sacrifice. We have been doing it for our entire history. I do not understand humans, Kethvar admitted. You joined the Coalition only 30 years ago. These are not your wars. These are not your people. Why risk everything for us? Jake turned to face him. Because that is what good people do, Kethvar. When someone needs help, you help them. When evil threatens the innocent, you fight it. Earth could have stayed isolated and hoped the Kreshtar would not find us. But that is not who we are. You could all die, Kethvar said quietly. Maybe, Jake agreed, but there are worse things than dying. Living with the knowledge that we could have helped and chose not to is one of them. Kethvar wanted to argue, but he could not find the words. Instead, he asked, "Are you afraid?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Terrified. Anyone who says they are not afraid of the Kreshtar is either lying or stupid. Fear is normal. It is what you do with that fear that matters. What do humans do with fear? We use it, Jake said. Fear reminds us what we are fighting for. It keeps us sharp, and when the time comes, we push through it and do what needs to be done anyway. Alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. Kethvar and Jake ran toward the bridge. When they arrived, the main view screen showed something that made Kethvar's blood freeze. The Kreshtar fleet was moving. Hundreds of dark ships were leaving the dimensional breach and heading straight toward the Coalition position. "All hands to battle stations," Captain Vrel ordered. "This is not a drill. The enemy is approaching. Prepare for combat." The Coalition fleet scrambled into defensive positions. Shields powered up, weapons armed. Crews that had been at peace for decades suddenly remembered they were warriors. The human fleet moved differently. Instead of forming defensive lines, they accelerated forward. 50 human warships raced directly toward the approaching Kreshtar armada. "What are they doing?" the tactical officer shouted. "They will be destroyed." Captain Vrel watched the view screen with wide eyes. "They are doing exactly what Admiral Martinez promised. They are taking the most dangerous position." "They are buying us time," Kethvar realized. "They are going to hit the Kreshtar first and slow them down." Jake stood at his station, watching the human fleet race towards certain death. His hands gripped his console tightly. Kethvar saw something on his friend's face. Not fear. Not even determination. Pride. The first human salvo lit up space like a newborn star. Kethvar watched from the bridge as streams of metal and light poured from the human fleet. Railgun rounds moving at incredible speeds, missiles trailing fire, and laser beams cutting through the darkness. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Kreshtar ships took the hits. Their organic hulls rippled and absorbed some damage, but not all. Several Kreshtar vessels showed wounds that leaked dark energy. The legendary ships could be hurt after all, but they could also hurt back. Dark energy beams lashed out from the Kreshtar fleet. Where they touched human shields, the shields simply vanished. Metal hulls melted like ice under summer sun. One human destroyer took a direct hit and broke apart in a silent explosion. "Their weapons ignore our shield technology," the science officer reported. His voice shook. "They are using dimensional phase weapons. Our energy barriers cannot stop them." Captain Vrel gripped his command chair. "Tell the fleet to fall back. We cannot fight weapons like that." "The humans are not falling back," the tactical officer said. Kethvar looked at the view screen. The human fleet was pushing forward despite taking losses. They were not retreating. They were getting closer to the enemy. "What are they doing?" Captain Vrel demanded. "This is suicide." Admiral Martinez's voice came through on the fleet-wide channel. Her voice was calm despite the chaos around her. "All Coalition ships, maintain your positions. Human fleet, execute pattern Delta 7. The human ships suddenly broke formation. They scattered in different directions, moving in ways that seemed random. Kethvar tried to understand the pattern but could not. "They have lost formation discipline," a Coalition admiral said over the command channel. "The humans are panicking." "No," Kethvar said quietly. "Look at their movements. They are not random. They are coordinated." He was right. The human ships were moving in a complex pattern. They used debris fields for cover, ducked behind disabled Kreshtar vessels, and constantly changed speed and direction. It made them harder to target. And while the Kreshtar tried to track them, the humans kept firing. A human cruiser named UNM West Ranger came screaming out from behind a debris field. It launched every missile it had at a damaged Kreshtar battleship. The missiles were not sophisticated weapons. They were just explosive warheads with basic guidance systems. But there were hundreds of them. The Kreshtar ship tried to defend itself. Its point defense systems destroyed many missiles, but some got through. The explosions created a chain reaction that tore the Kreshtar vessel apart. "They are using swarm tactics," the tactical officer said with surprise, "overwhelming enemy defenses with volume of fire." "It is working," Captain Vrel said. More human ships followed the same pattern. They attacked from unexpected angles, used cover effectively, and focused fire on damaged enemies. When a Kreshtar ship started regenerating its wounds, 3 human vessels would target it at once and blast it apart before it could heal. Jake stood at his liaison station, coordinating between human and coalition forces. Kethvar heard him relay orders with quick efficiency. "Captain Ben Walker reports his battle group is engaging Kreshtar cruisers at Grid 7, Jake said. "He requests coalition support on his flanks." "Send the Kelrath squadron," Captain Vrel ordered. "Tell them to cover the human ships." The battle became more chaotic. Human ships darted through the combat zone like angry insects, stinging the Kreshtar fleet constantly. Coalition vessels provided supporting fire, targeting enemies that the humans had already damaged. But the cost was terrible. Human ships were dying. Kethvar watched as a human frigate took a direct hit from a Kreshtar weapon. The ship's reactor went critical. It exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. "UNS Liberty destroyed," the communications officer reported quietly. "No survivors." Jake's face went pale, but he kept working. Kethvar knew that humans on that ship had been Jake's friends, maybe even family. But there was no time to grieve. A Kreshtar dreadnought broke through the human lines and headed straight for the Coalition flagship. It was massive, 3 times larger than Captain Vrel's ship, its weapons charged with dark energy. "Evasive maneuvers," Captain Vrel shouted. "Get us out of here." The flagship tried to turn, but it was too slow. The Kreshtar dreadnought would reach them in seconds. Then a human destroyer appeared. It was a small ship, barely a tenth the size of the Kreshtar vessel. The ship was called UNS Defiant, not to be confused with Admiral Martinez's flagship. Smoke poured from its hull. Half its weapons were destroyed. But it was still moving. The Defiant positioned itself directly between the flagship and the Kreshtar dreadnought. "What are they doing?" someone on the bridge whispered. Kethvar knew. He had studied human history with Jake. He knew about the concept of sacrifice plays in warfare. He knew that sometimes humans gave everything to protect others. "They are buying us time," Kethvar said. "They are going to ram it." The Defiant accelerated. Its engines glowed white-hot as the ship pushed beyond safety limits. The captain of the Defiant, a woman named Captain Amy Price, broadcast one final message. "Tell Earth we held the line. Tell them we were not afraid." The Defiant crashed into the Kreshtar dreadnought at faster-than-light speed. The collision created an explosion that could be seen from the other side of the system. When the light faded, both ships were gone. Just debris floating in space. The bridge was silent. Kethvar felt tears on his face. He did not try to wipe them away. Jake was crying too. But when he spoke, his voice was steady. "Captain Price's sacrifice gave us an opening. Admiral Martinez is ordering all coalition ships to advance. We press the attack now." Captain Vrel nodded slowly. He looked at his crew. "You heard the human. They paid with their lives for this chance. We will not waste it. All ships, advance. Show the Kreshtar that the coalition remembers how to fight." The coalition fleet surged forward. Ships that had been hanging back in defensive positions now raced toward the enemy. The aliens had seen humans sacrifice everything without hesitation. It shamed them. It inspired them. It reminded them of what warriors were supposed to be. The battle raged for 6 more hours. Space became a graveyard of broken ships and shattered dreams. But slowly, impossibly, the tide turned. The Kreshtar had not expected such fierce resistance. They had not expected enemies who fought with reckless courage. They had not expected humans. Captain Ben Walker commanded a small battle group of 3 human frigates and 2 coalition cruisers. His tactical officer, Maria Santos, called out targets while his weapons officer, Ryan Murphy, coordinated fire. They worked together like parts of a machine, destroying Kreshtar ships with brutal efficiency. "Target the carrier's engines," Walker ordered. "Full spread, all weapons." "Firing," Ryan replied. The combined firepower from Walker's battle group tore into a Kreshtar carrier. The ship's organic hull tried to regenerate, but there was too much damage. The carrier listed to one side and went dark. "Another one down," Maria said. "Sir, we have taken heavy damage. Shields are at 20%. Hull breaches on 3 decks. "Keep fighting," Walker said. "We are not done yet." All across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human crews fighting until their ships fell apart around them. Coalition forces rediscovering their warrior heritage. And the Kreshtar, the legendary monsters, dying. Finally, after 6 hours of brutal combat, the Kreshtar fleet began to retreat. The surviving ships pulled back toward the dimensional breach. They left behind dozens of dead vessels and thousands of escape pods floating in space. The Coalition had won. Barely. Kethvar looked at the damage reports and felt sick. The Coalition lost 40% of its fleet. Human losses were even worse. 60% of the 50 ships that arrived were gone. Jake slumped at his station, exhausted. His uniform was stained with sweat and tears. But when he looked at Kethvar, he smiled weakly. "We won," Jake said. "At what cost?" Kethvar replied. "Whatever it took," Jake said. "That is always the answer when fighting for something that matters." Admiral Martinez appeared on the view screen. Her flagship Defiance was heavily damaged but still functional. The Admiral's face was covered in cuts and bruises. One arm hung in a makeshift sling. "All ships, this is Martinez. The enemy is retreating. We have secured the sector. Well done, everyone. Human fleet, compile casualty lists and damage reports. Coalition forces, begin rescue operations for any survivors in escape pods." She paused, and her voice softened slightly. "To every human crew still alive, your courage today saved billions of lives. To every Coalition crew that stood with us, thank you. We proved that legends can bleed. We proved they can die." The transmission ended. Kethvar looked out at the debris field that surrounded them. Somewhere out there were the remains of the Defiant, the Liberty, and dozens of other human ships. Thousands of humans had died today, but they had won. "Jake," Kethvar said, "your people are incredible." Jake shook his head. "My people are just stubborn. We do not know how to quit. Sometimes that gets us killed. Sometimes it lets us kill monsters." He stood up slowly, wincing at injuries Kethvar had not noticed before. The aftermath of battle was always worse than the fighting itself. Kethvar learned this truth as he walked through the damaged corridors of the Coalition flagship. Medical teams rushed past carrying wounded crew members. Engineers worked frantically to repair critical systems. The smell of burned metal and spilled chemicals filled the air. Kethvar had been assigned to coordinate with the rescue operations. His job was to help identify and recover survivors from the debris field. It was difficult work that made his heart ache. He stood in the shuttle bay and watched as rescue teams brought back escape pods. Most were Coalition vessels, but some were human. Each pod was checked carefully. Sometimes there were survivors inside. Sometimes there were only bodies. One pod came in marked with Earth symbols. The rescue team opened it carefully. Inside was a single human female, unconscious but alive. Medical staff rushed forward with equipment. Kethvar helped carry her to the medical bay. She was young, maybe in her mid-20s. Her uniform showed she was a naval engineer. The name patch read Lieutenant Kate Bishop. In the medical bay, doctors worked on dozens of wounded. The staff was overwhelmed. Kethvar found himself helping however he could, fetching supplies and assisting with basic care. Kate woke up several hours later. She looked around the medical bay with confused eyes until she saw Kethvar standing nearby. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice was rough from smoke inhalation. "Coalition flagship," Kethvar replied. "You are safe. Your escape pod was recovered." Kate closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, tears were streaming down her face. My ship, the Relentless. Did anyone else make it? Kethvar checked the records on a nearby console. His heart sank. You were the only survivor from your vessel. I am sorry. Kate nodded slowly. She did not seem surprised. We held the line long enough for 2 coalition carriers to escape. The captain gave the evacuation order, but there was only time for 1 pod. He made sure I got out first because I was wounded. Your captain was brave, Kethvar said. Captain Tony Clark, Kate said. His family lives in Denver. Someone needs to tell them he died a hero. She tried to sit up but winced in pain. A medical officer came over and gave her something for the pain. Kate settled back down and looked at Kethvar. You are Tavesh, right? Jake talks about you. He said you are a good person. Jake is alive? Kethvar felt relief wash over him. Last I heard, Kate said. But communications are scattered. The human fleet took heavy losses. 30 ships gone. 30 ships and all their crews. Kethvar did the math in his head. Each human ship carried between 1 and 300 crew members. That meant roughly 6,000 humans had died in one battle. For a species as small as humanity, that was a devastating loss. Why do you fight so hard? Kethvar asked. Earth could have sent a token force. No one would have blamed you. Instead, you sent everything and lost more than half. Kate reached into her damaged uniform and pulled out something. It was a small photograph, protected in a waterproof case. She showed it to Kethvar. The picture showed a man and 2 children. The man was smiling. The kids were young, maybe 5 and 7 years old. They were at some kind of park with trees and playground equipment. My husband Greg, and our kids, Emma and Sam, Kate said. They are back on Earth? Safe because we are out here fighting. You fight for your family, Kethvar said. Everyone fights for their family, Kate replied. But humans understand something important. Our family includes more than just blood relatives. When we joined the coalition, you became our neighbors, our friends, part of our extended family, and humans protect family. She put the photograph away carefully. Besides, we studied the Kreshtar. If they break through here, they will not stop at coalition worlds. They will find Earth eventually. Better to stop them now, while we have allies, than face them alone later. Kethvar was called away to help with more rescue operations. Over the next 2 days, he worked almost constantly. The fleet was recovering, but slowly. Damaged ships limped back to coalition space for repairs. New ships arrived to replace losses. He saw Jake again on the 3rd day. The human liaison had been reassigned to help coordinate supply deliveries between the human and coalition fleets. Jake looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes, but he smiled when he saw Kethvar. Good to see you alive, Jake said. Same to you, Kethvar replied. They shared a brief embrace, something humans had taught Kethvar. Physical contact after shared trauma helped with emotional recovery. I have bad news, Jake said quietly. Intelligence reports say the Kreshtar are massing for another attack, a bigger one. They are bringing more ships and something else. What else? Kethvar asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. Dreadlords, Jake said. The historical records mention them. They are Kreshtar warrior leaders who can supposedly move through dimensions at will. They have power that can crack planets. The Coalition's ancestors barely survived fighting them before. Kethvar felt fear crawl up his spine. How many are coming? At least 5 confirmed, maybe more. That is impossible. We barely survived the first attack. How can we fight something even worse? Jake looked him in the eyes. The same way we fought the first time. We do whatever it takes. We hold the line. We protect what matters. More humans will die, Kethvar said. Yes, Jake agreed, but that is the price of doing what is right. Humans learned long ago that freedom is not free. Peace is not free. Survival is not free. Everything worth having costs something. Usually blood. I do not understand how you can be so calm about this, Kethvar said. I am not calm, Jake replied. I am terrified. But being afraid does not change what needs to be done. Earth is sending reinforcements. Every ship we can spare. Every weapon we have. We will stand with the Coalition until this is over. That evening, Kethvar found Kate Bishop in the repair bay. She had been discharged from medical and immediately volunteered to help fix damaged systems on the flagship. She was working on a damaged power relay with a team of coalition engineers. "You should be resting," Kethvar said. Kate looked up from her work. "Rest when it is over. Right now, we need every working ship possible. Another attack is coming." "You know about the Dreadlords?" "Everyone knows," Kate said. "The human fleet held a memorial service this morning for our fallen. Admiral Martinez gave a speech. She told us about the Dreadlords. She also told us that Earth is sending everything we have left. Vice Admiral Alex Hayes is bringing 30 more ships." "Only 30?" Kethvar said. "Earth must have more ships than that." Kate shook her head. "Those 30 ships are everything Earth can spare. The rest of our fleet has to stay home to protect Earth itself, just in case we fail here." The words hung in the air. Just in case we fail. Kethvar had never considered that failure was possible. He had always assumed the coalition would win somehow. But looking at the odds, at the power of the Kreshtar, at the legendary Dreadlords coming to destroy them all, he wondered if this was a fight anyone could win. "Do you think we can stop them?" Kethvar asked quietly. Kate was silent for a moment. She finished tightening a connection and then stood up to face him. "Honestly, I do not know. The Dreadlords are beyond anything we have faced. Our weapons might not even hurt them. But I know we will try, and I know that sometimes trying impossibly hard is enough." She smiled slightly. "Humans have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, it is the size of the fight in the dog. We might be smaller than the Kreshtar. We might have worse technology, but we have something they do not." "What is that?" Kethvar asked. "We have a reason to fight. We protect our families, our friends, our future. The Kreshtar just want to conquer and destroy. That is the difference between us. And that difference will matter when the final battle comes." The fleet continued repairs and preparations. New ships arrived daily. Coalition reinforcements from the core worlds, human vessels from Earth. Even species that had never sent military forces before contributed what they could. Supreme Commander Suresh held another council meeting. This time, the mood was different. The commanders had seen what the Kreshtar could do. They had also seen what could be done to the Kreshtar. They were no longer paralyzed by fear. Admiral Martinez presented a plan. It was risky and would cost many lives. But it was the only chance they had. The plan involved collapsing the dimensional breach permanently. If they could seal the rift, no more Kreshtar could come through. The ones already in normal space could be hunted down and destroyed. The problem was the weapon needed to collapse the breach. It had to be delivered directly into the dimensional rift. Someone would have to pilot it in manually. It was a suicide mission. When Martinez asked for volunteers, every human captain raised their hand. Kethvar watched from his station as Captain Ben Walker's name was selected. Walker's ship had survived the first battle but was heavily damaged. He would lead a small strike force directly into the breach while the main fleet held off the Kreshtar attack. That night, Kethvar could not sleep. He stood in the observation deck and watched the stars. Jake found him there, as he somehow always did. "Cannot sleep either?" Jake asked. "I keep thinking about tomorrow," Kethvar said. "About all the people who will die. About what happens if we lose." "Then we cannot lose," Jake said simply. "We will fight with everything we have." The Kreshtar fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a plague of locusts. 300 ships materialized in formation, their organic hulls pulsing with dark energy. They moved with purpose and coordination that spoke of countless battles won. At their center, 5 enormous vessels dwarfed everything around them. The Dreadlords had arrived. Kethvar stood at his station on the Coalition flagship's bridge. His hands moved automatically across his console, coordinating tactical data between different fleet sections. Around him, the bridge crew worked in tense silence. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew the odds. "All ships report ready," the communications officer said. His voice was surprisingly steady. Captain Vrel nodded. "Send to all fleet elements. This is the fight that decides everything. Hold nothing back. Give them everything we have." The combined coalition and human fleet numbered 400 ships. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy that had nearly destroyed the galaxy once before. But they were not running. They were ready to fight. Admiral Martinez's voice came through on the fleet command channel. All vessels, this is Martinez. You know the plan. The human strike force will push for the dimensional breach. Everyone else holds the line and keeps the Kreshtar off our backs. To every species here today, it has been an honor to stand with you. Now let us show these legends what happens when free people fight for their homes. Vice Admiral Alex Hayes commanded the reinforcement fleet from Earth. His voice joined Martinez's. Human fleet, remember why we are here. Remember who we are protecting. Today we write history. Today we become the legends that others will tell stories about. All ships, advance. The human fleet split into two groups. 30 ships under Hayes formed the main battle line alongside coalition forces. 20 ships under Captain Ben Walker broke away and headed directly for the dimensional breach at maximum speed. The Kreshtar moved to intercept. Their fleet spread out like a net, trying to catch everything at once. Dark energy weapons began firing before the fleets even came into optimal range. Space lit up with deadly light. The first casualties came within minutes. A coalition cruiser took a direct hit from a Kreshtar battleship. Its shields vanished and its hull melted. The ship broke apart, spilling escape pods into space. A human destroyer tried to cover the escape pods and got destroyed for its effort. All ships engage at will, Captain Vrel ordered. Focus fire on damaged targets. Do not let them regenerate. The battle became chaos instantly. Hundreds of ships maneuvered, fired, exploded, and died in the span of seconds. Kethvar tried to track everything, but it was impossible. His console showed too much data, too many threats, too many dying ships. Then the Dreadlords entered the fight, and everything got worse. One of the massive Dreadlord ships moved forward. It did not fire weapons. Instead, a wave of energy pulsed out from its hull. Every ship within 1,000 kilometers simply stopped working. Engines died. Weapons powered down. Life support systems failed. The affected ships drifted helplessly in space. "What was that?" Captain Vrel shouted. "Report." "Unknown energy field," the science officer said, his voice shaking. "It appears to disrupt all technology within range. The field is expanding." Kethvar watched in horror as the Dreadlord's field reached more ships. Coalition vessels and human ships alike went dark and silent. Crews were trapped inside dead ships, unable to do anything but wait for death. Another Dreadlord demonstrated its power. It opened tiers in space itself, creating micro-dimensional rifts. These rifts appeared inside Coalition ships, tearing them apart from the inside. Vessels exploded without being hit by any visible weapon. "The Dreadlords are as powerful as the legends said," Captain Vrel whispered. "How do we fight this?" "We find a way," Kethvar said. He surprised himself with the certainty in his voice. "The humans would not give up, neither will we." He was right. Despite the Dreadlords' terrifying power, the human fleet kept fighting. They adapted quickly, staying outside the Dreadlords' effective ranges when possible and focusing on the regular Kreshtar ships instead. If they could not kill the Dreadlords yet, they would kill everything around them. Captain Walker's strike force was halfway to the dimensional breach. They fought through waves of Kreshtar ships that tried to stop them. Walker's damaged battle group lost ships one by one. His tactical officer Maria Santos died when their bridge took a direct hit. Weapons officer Ryan Murphy took over navigation with burned hands and a broken arm. "Stay with me, Ryan," Walker said over the internal communication system. "We are almost there." "Sir, we lost the UNS Courage and UNS Fearless," someone reported. "That leaves only 12 ships in the strike force." "Then 12 ships will finish the mission," Walker said. "All remaining vessels follow my lead. We are going in." Back at the main battle, the Coalition fleet was learning how to hurt the Dreadlords. A group of Tevesh ships discovered that concentrated fire on a single Dreadlord could overwhelm its defenses. They attacked together, pouring every weapon they had into one target. The Dreadlord's hull began to crack. Then the Dreadlord retaliated. It projected an energy beam that cut through space like a knife. The beam sliced through two Tivesh cruisers, killing everyone aboard instantly. But the Coalition had proven something important. The Dreadlords could be hurt. They could bleed. Kethvar saw an opportunity. Captain, if we coordinate with the human battle group at Grid 7, we can hit that damaged Dreadlord from two sides at once. Captain Vrel looked at the tactical display. Do it. Contact Vice Admiral Hayes. Tell him we have a target. The combined attack worked. Coalition ships and human vessels attacked the wounded Dreadlord from multiple angles simultaneously. The Dreadlord tried to defend itself, but there were too many attackers. Its hull ruptured. Dark energy poured out like blood. The massive ship went silent and began drifting. The first Dreadlord was dead. A cheer went up across the Coalition fleet. If one could die, they all could die. But the cost kept rising. Human ships sacrificed themselves to create openings for Coalition vessels. A human carrier deliberately rammed a Kreshtar battleship, destroying both ships. 3 human frigates formed a defensive screen around a damaged Coalition medical ship and fought off attackers until all 3 frigates were destroyed. Kate Bishop was working in the flagship's engineering section when an explosion knocked her off her feet. A Kreshtar weapon had penetrated their shields and hit the engineering deck. Fires broke out everywhere. "Get damage control teams here now," Kate shouted. She grabbed a fire suppression unit and started fighting the flames alongside Coalition engineers. They worked together, humans and aliens fighting to save their ship. Captain Walker's strike force reached the dimensional breach. Only 8 ships remained. His own vessel, the UNS Freedom, was barely holding together. Half the crew was dead. The engines were failing, but they were at the target. "Load the weapon," Walker ordered. "Ryan, I need you to calculate the exact trajectory. We get one shot at this." "Calculating now, sir," Ryan said. His voice was weak from blood loss, but his hands were steady on the controls. The weapon was humanity's desperate creation. It was built from Coalition science and human engineering. A massive fusion device wrapped in exotic matter that would destabilize the dimensional barrier when detonated inside the breach. The theory said it would work. The theory better be right. "Sir, we have a problem," someone said. "The weapon guidance system is damaged. It will not fly itself into the breach. Someone has to pilot it in manually." Walker closed his eyes for a moment. He had known this was a possibility. The weapon was too important to risk on automated systems. It needed a human touch. "All ships, this is Walker. My crew and I are going to deliver the payload personally. I need you to cover our approach and then get clear." "That is an order." "Ben, no," Admiral Martinez's voice cut through the communication channel. "There has to be another way." "There is not, Admiral," Walker replied. "You know that. This is what we came here to do. Tell my family I love them. Tell Earth we did our job." Walker cut the communication channel. He looked at Ryan Murphy, his last surviving bridge officer. "You can still evacuate, Ryan. Take an escape pod." Ryan shook his head. "Someone needs to help you pilot this thing. I am not leaving." Walker smiled. "Then let us finish this together." The UNS Freedom accelerated toward the dimensional breach. The remaining 7 ships of the strike force formed a protective wall around them, fighting off every Kreshtar ship that tried to intercept. On the Coalition flagship, Kethvar watched the sensors. He saw Walker's ship approaching the breach. He saw the Kreshtar fleet desperately trying to stop them. He saw 3 more human ships die protecting Walker's approach. "They are going to make it," Captain Vrel said quietly. "They are actually going to make it." The Freedom entered the dimensional breach. Sensors lost track of the ship as it passed through the barrier into the twisted space beyond. For a moment, there was silence. Then the explosion came. It was not like a normal explosion. It was something else entirely. Reality itself seemed to scream. The dimensional breach began to collapse inward, folding into itself like paper being crumpled. Dark energy swirled and vanished. Every Kreshtar ship in normal space suddenly stopped moving. Without the dimensional connection sustaining them, their organic systems began to fail. The legendary vessels started dying, one by one. The Dreadlords lasted longer. Their power fought against the collapsing dimensional energy, but they were not designed to survive in normal space without their connection to the breach. One by one, the massive ships went dark. Their hulls cracked. Dark energy leaked out into space and dissipated. The Kreshtar fleet was dying. The legends were turning to ashes. "Cease fire," Admiral Martinez ordered. "Let the breach collapse completely. Do not give them any chance to stabilize it." The Coalition and human fleets watched as their ancient enemy died. It took 10 minutes for the dimensional breach to fully collapse. When it was done, nothing remained but a slight distortion in space that would fade in time. 300 Kreshtar ships floated dead in space. 5 dreadlords that could have destroyed planets were now just debris. The threat that had nearly ended galactic civilization 10,000 years ago was gone. Forever. The silence after the battle was worse than the noise during it. Kethavar stood in the observation deck of the Coalition flagship and looked out at the debris field. Millions of pieces of metal and organic material floated in space. Each piece was a fragment of a ship. Each ship had been crewed by living beings. The graveyard stretched in every direction. Recovery operations took weeks. Coalition ships carefully searched through the debris, looking for survivors in escape pods. They found some. Not many. Most escape pods had been destroyed during the fighting or had run out of life support while drifting in space. Kate Bishop survived. She continued working in engineering throughout the entire battle, keeping the flagship's systems running despite constant damage. When Kethavar visited her 3 days after the final fight, he found her in the repair bay, still working. "You should rest," Kethavar said. "The war is over." Kate looked up from the power relay she was fixing. Her face was covered in grease and exhaustion. "The war is over, but the work is not. These ships need repairs. People need homes to go back to. Life continues." "How can you keep going after everything that happened?" Kethavar asked. "You lost your ship, your crew. Captain Walker and thousands of others died. How do you not fall apart?" Kate was quiet for a long moment. She put down her tools and sat on a cargo crate. "I do not have the luxury of falling apart yet. Maybe later, when we are safe back on Earth, I will take time to grieve properly. But right now, people need me to be strong. So I am strong." She pulled out the photograph of her family again. The picture was worn from being handled so many times. "Greg sent me a message yesterday. He knows I survived. Emma and Sam are too young to understand what happened out here. But they will one day. And when they ask me what I did during the war, I want to tell them I did everything I could to make sure they grew up in a safe galaxy." Admiral Martinez held a memorial service 1 week after the battle. Every surviving ship in the fleet attended. The service was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the Admiral read the names of every human who died fighting the Kreshtar. It took 6 hours to read all the names. Kethavar attended the service with Captain Vrel and other senior Coalition officers. He listened as Martinez read name after name. Jake Collins was on that list. So was Captain Ben Walker, Captain Amy Price, Maria Santos, Tony Clark, thousands of names. Thousands of humans who would never go home. When Martinez finished reading the names, she stood silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried across space. These people came from a small planet called Earth. They joined the galactic community only 30 years ago. They could have stayed home. They could have let older, more powerful species handle this threat. But that was not who they were. When the Coalition called for help, Earth answered. Not with words, not with token gestures. With everything we had. Martinez paused. Kethavar could see tears on her face, but her voice remained steady. Humanity lost 60% of our fleet in this war. 6,000 people died to stop the Kreshtar. That is a number Earth will feel for generations. But those 6,000 saved billions. They turned legends into ashes. They prove that no enemy is unbeatable if you are willing to pay the price. She looked directly at the camera, and Kethavar felt like she was looking at him specifically. To the Coalition species watching this, I want you to remember something. Humanity did not fight for glory or conquest. We fought because it was right. We fought because you were our neighbors and friends. We fought because that is what good people do when evil threatens the innocent. Remember that when you rebuild your worlds. Remember that when you tell your children about the war. And remember who stood beside you when legends came from the dark." The service ended with a moment of silence. Every ship in the fleet powered down their engines for 1 minute. In that silence, Kethvar thought about Jake, about their conversations, about the humans' constant questions and endless optimism. Jake had believed humanity could make a difference. He had been right. Supreme Commander Suresh held a special council session 2 weeks after the battle. Every surviving fleet commander attended, either in person or via communication link. The topic was simple. What happened now? "The Kreshtar are gone," Suresh said. "The dimensional breach is permanently sealed. The threat that haunted our ancestors is finally ended. We won, but the cost was terrible. The Coalition lost over 300 ships and tens of thousands of lives. Humanity lost even more proportionally." She looked at Admiral Martinez, who attended via communication link from her damaged flagship. "Admiral, Earth's sacrifice in this war cannot be measured. Your species faced an enemy they barely understood and fought with courage that shamed our hesitation. The Coalition owes humanity a debt we can never fully repay." Martinez shook her head. "We do not want payment, Commander. We want partnership." Earth joined the Coalition as junior members. We were told to learn from older species, to follow the lead of civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. But this war taught us something important. Age does not equal wisdom. Power does not equal courage. Sometimes the newest voice in the room has the most important things to say. "What are you suggesting?" a Kelrath admiral asked. "I am suggesting the Coalition needs to change," Martinez said. "For 12,000 years you maintained peace by avoiding conflict. You became complacent. When a real threat appeared, you were unprepared. If Earth had not spent 20 years preparing for the impossible, the Kreshtar would have won. That should worry you." The council chamber was silent. Several alien commanders looked uncomfortable, but no one argued. Martinez was right. "Humanity requests a greater role in Coalition military planning," Martinez continued. "We will share our tactics, our strategies, our philosophy of being prepared for the worst. In exchange, we want access to better technology and resources to rebuild our fleet. We want to be treated as equals, not students." Suresh considered this. Then she nodded. "Agreed. Earth has earned its place as a full member of the Coalition. No more junior status. Humanity will have equal voice in all military and political decisions." It was a historic moment. In the span of 1 month, humanity had gone from being the newest species in the galaxy to being one of the most respected. They had bought that respect with blood. Kethvar received a promotion to full tactical officer and was assigned to work on the new Coalition military doctrine. His job was to incorporate human tactics and strategies into standard training. He worked alongside Kate Bishop, who had been assigned as a technical consultant. They spent months together, analyzing battle data and writing training materials. Kethvar learned more about human military thinking during those months than he had in 3 years of friendship with Jake. "Humans approach warfare differently than most species," Kate explained one day. "Most aliens see war as a necessary evil to be avoided when possible. Humans see it as an unfortunate reality to be prepared for always. We study every battle, every conflict, every disaster. We learn from our mistakes, and we never forget our lessons." "That seems exhausting," Kethvar said, "always preparing for the worst." Kate smiled. "It is exhausting, but it keeps us alive. Earth has been through ice ages, plagues, world wars, and near-extinction events. We survived because we adapted, because we prepared, because we never gave up, even when things seemed hopeless." "Is that what makes humans different?" Kethvar asked. "The refusal to give up?" "Partly," Kate said, "but I think it is more than that. Humans understand that sometimes you have to pay terrible prices for things that matter. We lost 6,000 people in this war. That is a number that will haunt Earth for generations. But we saved billions. Was it worth it? Ask the families of the people who died, and they might say no. Ask the billions who lived because of their sacrifice, and they will say yes. Both answers are right. 6 months after the war ended, the coalition held a dedication ceremony. They built a memorial station at the site of the final battle. The station had walls inscribed with the names of every being who died fighting the Kreshtar. Coalition names and human names together. Kethvar attended the ceremony. He stood before the wall section that listed Jake Collins's name. He placed his hand on the cold metal and remembered his friend. "I wish you could see this," Kethvar said quietly. "The galaxy you helped save. The peace you died to protect. You told me humans would make a difference. You were right." Kate stood beside him. She had her own section to visit with the names of her crew from the Relentless. "They will not be forgotten," she said. "Every species in the coalition knows what happened here. They know who stood against the darkness. The story will be told for thousands of years." "What will the story say?" Kethvar asked. Kate thought about it. "It will say that legends came from the dark to destroy the galaxy. It will say the coalition faced an enemy from nightmares. And it will say that humanity, the newest and smallest species, refused to accept the impossible. We looked at legends and saw only another enemy to defeat. We paid in blood, but we won." "Is that enough?" Kethvar asked. "Is the story worth the price?" "That depends on who you ask," Kate replied. "But I think so. Because the alternative was letting the Kreshtar win. And that was something humanity would never accept." 1 year after the war, Kethvar was assigned to a new coalition flagship. His role was to train the next generation of tactical officers using lessons learned from the Kreshtar War. On his first day, he stood before a class of young officers from a dozen different species. "Today we begin your education in modern warfare," Kethvar said. "You will learn tactics that were proven in the hardest war this galaxy has ever faced. You will learn from the species that taught us all a lesson in courage and determination. You will learn from humans." He pulled up a display showing the final battle. The young officers watched as the battle unfolded, seeing the desperate fight and ultimate victory. "This is the day I saw humanity turn legends into ashes," Kethvar said. "This is the day a small species taught the entire galaxy that no enemy is unbeatable. This is the day we learned what it truly means to fight for something that matters." He looked at the young faces watching him. "The Kreshtar are gone, but the universe is dangerous. Other threats will come. When they do, you will be ready. Because you will remember this lesson. You will remember what humans showed us. That preparation, courage, and sacrifice can overcome any obstacle. That free people fighting for their homes are the most dangerous force in the universe. And that sometimes, the smallest voice in the room has the most important things to say." The class was silent, absorbing his words. Kethvar smiled slightly. Jake would have been proud of this moment. His friend had always believed in teaching others, in spreading knowledge and understanding. After class, Kethvar returned to his quarters. He had a small memorial on his desk, a photograph of Jake, smiling as always. Next to it was a piece of debris from the UNS Freedom, the ship Captain Walker had piloted into the dimensional breach. Kate had given it to him as a gift, a reminder of what had been sacrificed. Kethvar touched the debris gently. "We remember," he said quietly. "The galaxy remembers. Your sacrifice meant something. You turned legends into ashes and gave us all a future." Outside his window, stars shone peacefully. The galaxy was safe. Children slept without fear. Families lived without worry about ancient monsters returning from the dark. All because humanity had refused to accept the impossible. All because 6,000 humans had looked at legends and said, "Not today." The price had been terrible. But the alternative had been unthinkable. And in the end, that was what made the sacrifice worth it. That was what made humanity special. They understood that some things were worth dying for, and they never hesitated to pay that price when the moment came. Kethvar wrote one final report for the Coalition archives. He titled it carefully, choosing words that would capture what he had witnessed. He called it simply, "The Day Humanity Taught the Galaxy That Legends Can Die." His final words echoed what he had learned. "I saw the Kreshtar, the monsters of myth, the unstoppable force of ancient nightmares. And I saw humans look at legends and see only another enemy to defeat. Perhaps that is why they will inherit the stars. Not because they are the strongest or the oldest or the most advanced, but because they understand something the rest of us forgot. That determination and courage can overcome any obstacle. That preparation and sacrifice can defeat any enemy. And that free people, fighting for what they love, are the most dangerous force in the universe. May we never forget this lesson. The cost had been terrible. Of the 400 ships that fought in the final battle, less than 100 survived. The human fleet was almost completely destroyed. Only 15 human vessels remained intact. Kethvar sat at his station and tried to process what had happened. They had won. Against all odds, against legends, against monsters from nightmares, they had won. But the victory tasted like ashes. And when we have nothing left, we will fight with our bare hands if we must. That is what humans do. We survive. We endure. We win. Even against legends? Kethvar asked. Jake smiled. Especially against legends. Because humans have learned something important. Legends are just stories. And we are very good at changing the ending of stories. The next day, sensors detected the Kreshtar fleet approaching. It was 3 times larger than the first attack. And at its heart, 5 massive vessels that could only be the Dreadlords. The final battle was about to begin. I need to report back to my fleet. They are recalling all liaison officers. Will I see you again? Kethvar asked. Jake smiled. I hope so, but the breach is still open. More Kreshatar will come. This was just the first battle. As Jake left the bridge, Kethvar realized something. This war was not over. The legends had retreated, but they would return. And when they did, humanity would be waiting. He just hoped there would be enough humans left to fight. Jake, Kethvar said, are all humans like this? Jake looked at him. His eyes were wet, but he smiled. When it matters? Yes. When someone needs to stand in front of a monster, humans will always volunteer to be first in line. It is what we do. The human fleet reached weapons range. The Kreshtar fired first. Dark energy weapons lashed out, striking human shields. Several ships took damage immediately. Then, the humans returned fire. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened humanity's friends. Apparently, the communications officer said, Admiral Lisa Martinez is requesting to speak with Supreme Commander Suresh. The view screen changed. A human woman appeared. She wore a military uniform and had iron gray hair. Her face was hard and her eyes were cold. This was not a diplomat. This was a warrior. Earth stands ready, Admiral Martinez said simply. Tell us where to fight. Kethvar looked at Jake, who stood nearby at his station. The human met his eyes and nodded once. The legends were coming. But maybe, just maybe, humanity had brought some legends of their own.